Hi, I'm Sean with SFG Electronics. If you didn't already know by the title of the video and by this array of boxes, today we're going to build a new PC. Hold up, Future Sean here. I just wanted to drop in and say I forgot to mention, this is a middle of the road PC. It's going to be doing some gaming, it's going to be doing some rendering, it's going to be doing some video editing. I didn't want to go super premium, I didn't want to go super cheap. All items featured in this video were purchased by me, nothing was sponsored. The links for everything are down below in the video description. And on with the show. Start off with our motherboard. We went with an Asus Prime Z690A. I was really leaning towards the Asus Creator Z690, Z790, but I just couldn't justify the extra $200+ for similar functionality. Now we open the motherboard, all wrapped in plastic. One thing that really is kind of irritating nowadays is they actually send a DVD with all your software. Not really prevalent in this day and age because most of the computers being built do not have optical disk drives anymore. Comes with a couple SATA cables, our quick plug for plugging in the front headers on the case. Got some pads for when we install the NVMe drive. So we go to our CPU. I went with an i7-12700KF. I know it doesn't have graphics, which provides critical processing power for doing videos and stuff, but again, for the extra $35, $40 difference, we're fine with this one. I've already inspected the motherboard. All the pins are straight and where they need to be, nothing is out of place. So we take our CPU and always line up a little triangle, right like that. Cover down, always leave the black cover in place because when you press it down right here, is when it pops off. Save that in case you ever need to do any shipping or anything with your motherboard. You always want to make sure those pins are protected. And make sure we're latched in place properly. Next, this board supports 4 M.2 NVMe drives. We're only installing one at this time, so we remove the top cooler. This has a thermal pad in place right here. We just peel the tape off on that one. And we have a Crucial P5 Plus, 2 TB. This is a very good drive. Not the fastest in the world, but it's more than sufficient for what we need. So this goes in the socket. There's only one way it fits in the socket. Asus with their quick latches make short work of this to lock that into place. And that's good. Peel the tape off the back side of the heatsink. And we screw it back together. Alright, next is our RAM. We chose a G.skill rip jaws. These are DDR5. We have two 16 gig sticks here. Now I chose G.skill because I've used them in the past. I've always had good luck with them. They're reliable. I've never had a G.skill stick fail on me. In here, out of the 4 slots, we're going to use the gray slots. We're going to use the gray slots, and I don't know how to put these bitches in. Make sure it's in, make sure it's locked in. Second stick and the gray slot. Lock it in. Flip, make sure your switches are locked up and everything is. Make sure your switches, make sure your locks are all in place and everything's locked down. We have some peels on here. There's one there. Alright, that's it for the motherboard. Let's move on to the case. Alright, so here we are with our case. We opted for the Corsair 4000D Airflow. It's a little bit bigger than what I wanted, but there's a reason I had to go this big. This is a very popular case. It is #1 seller on Amazon. And I don't know how to open boxes, apparently. Inside the box, we get 2 big blocks of styrofoam, but the manual, which is ½ inch thick. It's a nice roomy case. Here, let's get everything. The big issue I have with cases right now is everything has to get disassembled before you can use them. So, very easily, we pop off this front panel, metal panel. Underneath here, there is a magnetic mounted air filter. Pops right off. Thumb screws on the back side for the side panels. They give you thumb tabs here with arrows telling you to push out, and the panels just slide right off. Back side's the same way. Now, the problem here, I'm going to remove, the system comes with 2 fans, both already installed. I'm going to remove both of them. First of all, I need to remove the back one, just to make sure it doesn't get in the way. And we need to remove our front fan. Now, odds are if you're building a system, you're not going to use the fans in this installed configuration anyways. Why then, just about every case that you buy, are the fans already going to be mounted? It's baffling to me. We are actually putting a 360mm AIO in this unit. So this fan needs to get removed to get repositioned. Now this case is very well capable of quite a bit of hardware. First of all, we need to remove this plate here to fit our radiator in. Right next to that, right here is our 3.5 hard drive cage, which comes with toolless disk trays, and here's all our hardware in this box. And a big chunk of styrofoam on top of the hard drive cage that I can't get out. Moving on to our cooler, we decided to go with an Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 360mm all-in-one AIO. These are incredibly hard to find right now. I originally had it on back order at Newegg because Amazon was out of stock, and all of a sudden Newegg told me it was going to be on back order for another month. So I did some research and found on eBay, Arctic sells right on eBay, there's a factory B stock. Not sure what that means, but it's fully covered under their full brand new factory warranty. When it showed up, the box is a little beat up. There's a couple wrinkles in it, a couple scuffs. Everything inside appears to be new, just as if you were to buy it off the shelf at your local retailer. Now this comes with an array of hardware. Everything's wrapped up in the box. We're going to install this in the front of the case. So we have a peel on each of these fans has a, if I can get to it, plastic peel on it. Now, we need to unscrew these fans from the radiator to get everything properly mounted up in our case here. This is set up in a configuration where it's in a push configuration this way through the radiator, which is how you'd want it if it was being top mounted. But this case does not support a 360 on top. So we need to make sure we get all the screws out. Flip these over to the other side and then screw them into our case. So, like I said, we just make sure we don't have any wires pinched in our fans. That's how it looks. Here's the slots I was talking about. Now this will support a 360 up front, 240 or 280 up front, and a 240 or 280 up top. This is a tight fit. Arctic liquid freezers, they use a thicker radiator. Make sure it fits in your case before you try installing it. This is a 38mm thickness, and most radiators are considerably thinner than that. Now, moving back to the motherboard, we need to install the back plate for the cooler. already pre-sorted the necessary hardware. You can make sure you're using the correct brackets and hardware. This is an LGA 11. This is an LGA 1700 socket, so you have to have a special bracket for that. If it doesn't come with this bracket, then you need to get the free upgrade kit. Okay, now the first step here is they send these little plastic sticky washers, spacers, or whatever you want to call them, and they put those over the holes in the back. If you don't properly use these, there have been reports of people using the cooler without the proper spacers. When they tighten everything down, they tear up the traces on the motherboard, and their motherboard is no longer usable. We have 4 on the back, we need 4 on the front. And apparently these are very sticky, so make sure they're in the right spot, because once you get them stuck down, they're probably not going to move too easy. Alright, so now the back plate. Nuts in place, O-rings in place to hold them there. We go just like that. Now you need to pay attention to the instructions listed on Ardic's website if you're using this kit, because comes with multiple hardware, and you need to make sure you're using the correct standoffs at this point. They have very detailed instructions, and they tell you which ones you need to use for which socket you're using. Again, these are 13 millimeters long because we're using an LGA 1700 socket. And we just go finger tight on these. There's a hex on them. I don't feel comfortable tightening them more than finger tight. Alright, and for now we need to prep our cooler, our pump. This has the new pump cover on it. Some of the older models, this is flat all the way up, and it doesn't properly fit in the motherboard. Ardic also has a compatibility sheet on their website. It tells you whether or not you need to worry about it. This has the newer cover, so we're not worried about it. Now we take our 2 side plates, 1 screw on each side. Again, make sure you're not pinching any cables here. Nice and snug. Second plate. Nice and snug. Alright, now it's time to put the motherboard into the case. Looks like we have all our standoffs in place. So we fit the motherboard down, don't drop it. Slide through our I/O shield. Now, there we are. Nice thing about Corsair cases, they do have just a blank stud right in the middle to hang the board from. And it helps immensely in lining everything up and getting everything in place. Into the hardware. You got a couple extra cable ties and a bag full of screws, and there's some extra zip ties in here for cable management. So again, we put our screws in snug. We don't want to over tighten them. These are delicate electronic parts. Don't over tighten them. When need to make sure we get all our screws in place properly. There's two big killers for electronics. That's heat and vibration. And as long as we have all our screws in, we should be eliminating as best that we can the vibration part. Alright, everything's in, everything's mounted. Let's clean up our screws here so we don't lose them. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this cooler on. Now the cooler comes with a very tiny tube of Arctic MX5. There's enough in here to do one CPU. We're just going to do a line down the middle. Always remember, peel off all your peels. If you leave that on there, that could be bad. Again, just make sure we're not pinching our wires. And it slides down. Over our existing standoffs. We have thumb screws that have a #1 Phillips on them. Boy, this would be tough in a smaller case. This is a fairly large case and there's a lot of room here, but there really isn't. So now once these are close to being snug, we just turn them each, just go in a pattern and turn everyone just a little bit. Again, there's no reason to over tighten any of this stuff. And there we are, we should be good to go with that. And then we have our 4-pin cable here that I'm going to route around. And I'm actually going to plug this in the AIO slot. Make sure that's fully seated, otherwise it won't work as intended. And there we have it. With our cooler installed. Yes, before anyone says anything, it is on top. And if you see how high these are compared to the pump, if any evaporated water is going to sit on top, it's not going to affect the pump at all. These hoses are stiff but pretty flexible. There shouldn't be any problem putting the cover on. Let's get the power supply installed. You know, we opted for the Superflower 850 watt power supply. Really wanted to go with a Corsair, but watching PC Part Picker, Amazon, Newegg, anytime I would add them to my cart, they'd be sold out. This is an equivalent. Looking at reviews on this, people say this is equivalent to a Seasonic. Premium components. We're gonna give her a shot. Inside the box, user's manual. There's a nice fabric bag with all your cords. The power supply itself. Power cord and installation screws, mounting screws. I've already gone through this and marked out what we need. I have my 24-pin motherboard cord. I have two 8-pin CPU connectors and two 8-pin connectors for our GPU. Here they're marked VGA. That's all we should need out of there. Now with this case, you might run into an issue with not enough clearance for your power supply. Your hard drive. You have two thumb screws here. and this cage is fully removable. I'm going to leave it in place. No need to take it out. I might use it someday. Now this power supply does have a eco mode. Not really eco mode from what I can tell by reading about it. All it really does is change your fan curves. Again, not a real big problem for me. This isn't going to affect me if it's moderately noisy, which I don't expect it to be. I'd rather have it cool and have the longevity than have it be quiet. So we got that mounted in. Need to make sure the switch is off so when we plug it in it doesn't screw everything up. Now for our cables. Alright. So then, from here, our next and final piece is our GPU. Asus Tough Gaming 4070 Ti. We could price the used ones. People are selling 3070 Ti's in that $500-600 mark. Used 3080s, 3080 Ti's, 3090s. People still think they're over 1,000. This has been tested. It's similar performance to 3080, 3080 Ti, 3090 in that range for $799. So cheaper than a used previous gen model. Inside the box, we have another box. And every time I open this, it's upside down. There's our Tough Gaming. Inside the box, we have our GPU. We have our power connector. Comes with a cable strap. And it comes with this nifty little tool, which is magnetic, so it sticks. First and foremost, it's to hold up the end of the card as a support. But if you unscrew it all the way and turn it around, now you have a little screwdriver for on-the-spot repairs. It's magnetic, so you stick it in your case, it'll stay where you put it, for the most part. Alright, so all kinds of peels on this one. All the way across the top on the cooler. All three fans. Thankfully, these have tabs on them to get them off easier. Not like the cooler fans from Arctic. There's plastic everywhere. Sheet on the bottom plate, sheet on the back. Need to pop that off. Nice, heavy card. It's only going to use 2 slots. So we gotta pop those covers out. So the way this is going to work is the 3 fans in the front through the radiator. You're going to blow air back into the case. And this fan on top and the fan in the back, you're going to blow the air out of the case. What we end up with is adjusting our fan curves to make everything a little more symmetric, but we end up with a very slight positive pressure inside the case, which gives us less dust. Gives us less dust because it's not sucking air in from every little crack and crevice, it's actually pushing it out. The way this case is designed, we have a filter on the front where the majority of the air is coming in. That's going to keep it pretty clean on the inside. when you plug this in for the GPU, you need to make sure as little bend as possible and make sure it is fully seated. That's where they're running into issues, is they're not a good contact, there's too much stress on it. Push it in, you'll hear and or feel a little click. Make sure that's, again, fully seated in there. Just need to do some cable management and we're done. All right, and there we have it. There's our completed install, our completed build. I haven't checked it out yet, but that's the next step. Thanks for tuning in. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe.